Hello everybody, it's your boy Hawka, the Counter-Strike Scholar, back with another video, and we are doing the next stage of the Pickems. Let's quickly recount exactly how we did in that first stage. We can see we got our 5 correct, just about. I don't know how to check how we did, actually. Here we go. So, you can see we got Ents right, we got G2, we got Vitality, we got Liquid, and most importantly, we also got Outsiders here for our 5 teams to advance. I saw a couple of people actually mess this up because they put a team like Outsiders in their 3-0, and this is why I think you want to put all your safest teams in that bottom row. Make sure you have the highest chance of getting 5 points, because that's all we need to do in this section. Now, let's move on and tell you my thoughts for the Legends stage. I actually think there's a pretty strong meta that we'll be building. I think a lot of people will go with similar picks, and I really think there are 5 teams down here in the bottom section that even if you think they're going to slightly underperform or aren't as good as everyone thinks, you probably just have to pick them, because even if they did underperform, they probably should still make it through that stage. Those teams are going to be, firstly, FaZe. They're the tournament favorites. They've got pretty much everything you would need to make it through this stage. Karrigan is such an experienced IGL, and we have already seen in the earlier stage of the major, having the experience seems to be making a pretty big difference for a lot of these teams. And not only do FaZe have that experience in spades on this lineup, but they also have a very skilled roster. Maybe there's a chance they get off to a slow start because they haven't had the chance to build that momentum, but I have to assume they're going to make it through this section. Next has to be Navi. Yes, they haven't been the same dominant team as of late, but Simple is still so unbelievably good. I actually don't understand how Simple is still so far above everyone else, despite everything that has been going on with this team and the unfortunate scenario that they've had to battle through. They've still looked very, very good. Yeah, they're just a very solid squad. They've got a lot of skill. There's no reason they shouldn't be making it through this stage. Next, we have Heroic, another team I think you have to include. They're just such a well-rounded roster. They have good individuals in literally every position. They're one of the few teams that can say, we don't have a player who is going to be a liability really at any point. And they are also all players that can step up and carry occasionally. Even someone like Shush, who I think is super underrated as a support player for this squad. And because they're so well-rounded, and also because they have a weird style, I also think they're a team that's quite well suited to BO1. So I think they are another really safe pick for this section. Normally they're the team that actually struggle when it gets to playoffs, so they're actually a team I could maybe even see going 3-0, but we don't care about that. We're just looking for the safe point. We put them down in that bottom section. Next, we have Vitality. I think they're starting to gel. I think they are starting to look pretty solid based on what we saw in that previous stage. Pretty much all the players who we need to perform are performing. But most importantly, Misuta had some huge impact maps and some really impressive entry kills in some of those games. And he was the player before who was a bit of a letdown for them. But now he's stepping up. And he is in very hard spots, so that means when he does have good games, when he is getting kills, it is normally big impact kills, either as the site anchor or as the player oftentimes flying in first. And then Apex was playing some real heads-up Counter-Strike. He was actually being left in clutch scenarios sometimes and making some really cool moves. So I think a lot of things are coming together for this Vitality squad to back up the core of the roster that was already looking good. Next, we have G2 as my final team. I think you have to pick in this lower section. Again, another team that just looks good enough. I mean, Nico and Hunter are still playing unbelievably well. They are very consistent star players. The thing you'll probably notice with all these teams at the bottom here is they have generally a lot of experienced players. They are pretty well-established rosters, other than maybe the G2 and the Vitality, who have had some shift-ups. But more importantly, they just have very skilled players and players who have a lot of experience. And so that, for me, is why all these teams are pretty much must picks. I think they are incredibly likely to make it through this stage, even if they underperform. Now we get into the interesting stuff, because for me, there are 3 more teams who I think are just a slight level above the rest of the competition. But honestly, this is where it starts to get kind of close for me. I'm pretty confident, though, honestly, that I'll probably get 5 points out of all these 5 teams. But my next pick is going to be Ents. I think they showed enough in the earlier stage. Again, I think they're a team who are really good in BO1s, and that kind of showed in the earlier stage where I'm pretty sure they won 16-7 and 16-6 in some of their BO1s. They were dominating teams because they like to run these set plays out of spawn. I think it gets them into the mood real quick, and they are a team who are going to play aggressive from the get-go. So if they go up against someone who's off to a slow start, they could actually cause some upsets. Even in that opening matchup against FaZe, I think there is some upset potential there, just because FaZe haven't necessarily had the chance to play any games and fully get up to speed themselves. And yeah, I just like this team. I think they're just good enough to go through. And then my final one is going to be between Furia and Cloud9. I think both of these squads are solid, but I actually think Furia are a little more confident for me right now. And I also think because Cloud9 have been picked up by an org recently, I'm going to put them in 3-0 because I do think there's a chance they could just go on that miracle run, come out swinging and just make it happen. So I'm going to put them as the 3-0. I'm not really sure where I put Cloud9 in my head right now, and I like putting teams that I think could be really good or could be really bad in this section. So I'm going to go for Cloud9 as the 3-0. I'm going to go for Furia going through. I think they are, again, just a super solid team. They have experience. They made it to the playoffs of the last major, and I think their lineup is even better now. And even though some of the other rosters have made roster moves, I still think Furia have that style that can work for BO1s, and just overall are good enough to make it through. There are a couple of teams I think you can consider, but I think something like this will be pretty common in terms of most people's picks. I think a lot of people might put Furia as their 3-0, and I can totally understand that because Furia's style makes you feel like they can basically just go on a run and hit a hot streak at any time. But I just think Furia are, for some reason in my head, a little more likely to make it through, and so I want them down here. As for the 0-3, I think it has to be Imperial, and I think everyone's going to pick Imperial. And the one thing that scares me about this pick is I could actually see them upsetting big in that opening BO1. I could see that as a very real upset chance. Big are the kind of team where I could really see them coming into this stage of the tournament, maybe not having all their individuals at the top level. I don't think they have as many good individuals as a lot of the other people in this tournament. So there is a chance for that upset, but I still think Big should get that win. And once that happens, I don't see many other chances for Imperial. The only other teams I think you could maybe consider are Bad News Eagles, but bro, have you seen the firepower on this team? They can win a best of one at any time. I'm telling you, they have some of the sharpest aimers out there, so I would not take that risk. And then Liquid, maybe, but I think if you go to an 0-2 matchup, I'm putting my money on Liquid to beat Imperial in that scenario. So for me, Imperial has to be the 0-3. I do want to talk about a couple of other teams quickly, though. I think you genuinely could put Copenhagen Flames either through, or I kind of like them as a 3-0 pick, because this feels like the kind of team where, like the last major, if they go on a run and play without pressure, maybe they could just go through 3-0. It's another team where I'm not really sure what to expect from them, so I don't mind that pick, but I just think there's so many other good teams, you don't have to take that risk. I also think Spirit are low-key a team that could cause some upsets. I just think they're not quite going to be able to make it through when it comes down to crunch time. And then NIP are a team who always seem to do just slightly better than I expect from them. And right now, I'm kind of expecting them to probably go 2-3. So maybe there is a chance they can prove me wrong once again and just about make it over the edge. But I look at the lineup and I don't think it quite has the quality of some of the other teams here. So this is my pick'em. I think this is pretty safe. As I was saying earlier, if you want to go with Furia over Cloud9, I think that is fine in the 3-0 section. But overall, these first 5 teams, I strongly suggest you put in this lower section. You do not want to miss out on a point here because you put them in 3-0 and they lose a BO1. So I'm going to lock in those picks. Best of luck, everybody. We're still rooting for that diamond coin. I am a believer that we are going to get it. And if you agree with my picks, let me know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. My name's been Hawka, and I'll catch you next time.